Today, we're going to try talking about Taiwanese popcorn chicken with fried basil. So, why do we call it popcorn chicken? In Taiwan, we call it 鹹酥雞 or 鹽酥雞. Both are okay. In English, some people might call it Taiwanese popcorn chicken. I would probably just call it Taiwanese fried chicken. Or you could just use the Chinese name and you could say 鹹酥雞 or 鹽酥雞. So I think I've told you before that when you have words from other languages, like words for food especially, I think it's better just to use the original language. You could write it with the Latin alphabet, but I think it's better if you keep the original language. Like if we're talking about Mexican food and I have a Mexican wrap, no one would say a Mexican wrap. You would say it's a burrito. For Italian food, you would never say I'm eating Italian noodles. You would say I'm eating pasta, right? The word pasta comes from Italian. Same thing with Chinese. Taiwanese popcorn chicken, yeah, that's okay. But just use the word from Chinese. 鹹酥雞, and then you explain it. Oh, we're going to make 鹹酥雞. It's a kind of fried chicken from Taiwan. And that's perfectly fine, right? Like if you don't know what pasta is, I could say, we're going to make pasta. It's a kind of noodle from Italy, right? So that's what I recommend for food. Like I think another example would be for breakfast in Taiwan. In Taiwan for breakfast, what do you eat? Maybe a danbing. What do you call danbing in English? Well, I would just say, I'm going to get a danbing for breakfast. Just say it in an English way. You could translate it to an egg pancake, but then that doesn't sound like danbing. That sounds like something different. So, as I've said before, sometimes keep the name in the original language, but then explain what it is if the person doesn't know it. But anyways, for Taiwanese food and Chinese food, for some reason, some people are afraid to do that. I think we need to change that. But I would say we're going to make 鹹酥雞, but then the newspaper says we're going to make Taiwanese popcorn chicken. Okay? Why is it called popcorn chicken? Well, if you go to KFC in America, they have something called popcorn chicken, which means little pieces of fried chicken. Because they're little pieces and it's almost like popcorn. You eat one little bite of chicken. While American fried chicken, like most fried chicken in America, will be a bigger piece. So popcorn chicken is a little bit special. Okay, so Taiwanese fried chicken. Let's jump into it. Time. How long will it take to make? 30 minutes plus 1 hour marinating. Right away, we have a good word. Marinating. So this is a verb, marinate. To marinate something means you put, usually it's meat, you put something into a sauce and you let it sit there for a long time. And then the meat or whatever will absorb the sauce. So marinating means we're going to put chicken into a sauce and let it sit in the sauce for 1 hour so it gets that flavor. So the time to make this is 30 minutes plus 1 hour marinating. And they say it this way because 30 minutes of actual work, 1 hour marinating where you just can go watch a TV show. You don't have to do anything when you wait, right? So, and then we have a rating, the score. This has a 4 stars out of 5. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's not perfect. Maybe it's a little bit difficult to make. Maybe it's hard to find the ingredients. We'll see. Or well, I guess we don't know. But anyways. Okay. So let's read the background before we read the recipe. This spiced fried chicken is a staple in the night markets of Taiwan. Okay, what does it mean if something is a staple? A staple, this means like a common food or a standard food or just a standard thing in general. Okay, so this is a staple in night markets in Taiwan. You can imagine like stapling paper to paper. Imagine you have night market, fried chicken, you staple them together. They belong together, okay? So if something is a staple, it's a very common food. So I might say chicken parmesan is a staple of Italian-American food. If you go to an Italian-American food restaurant, you're probably going to see chicken parmesan, okay? It's a staple, okay? You can order the chicken, you can order the chicken in cutlet form or small bites like these. So we have a cutlet or small bites like these. So small bites like these, which are served in paper bags with wooden skewers. So this which section is describing the small bites. The small bites are served in paper bags with wooden skewers. You can imagine this. They're in a paper bag and these are wooden skewers. You poke it. Ow. So, fried chicken in Taiwan can be two forms. Cutlet form. A cutlet is a ji pie. So I think I saw someone in our line group, I think it was Monica. She said she liked fried chicken chop. So we don't say chicken chop, we would say a chicken cutlet. A chop would be like a pork chop. We say pork chop, chicken cutlet. And the chicken cutlet means like a piece of chicken breast usually. Okay, so it could be in cutlet form or small bites like these. Duffy, I'll take a look at your link later. This recipe uses a few spices that cannot be skipped. So you cannot skip some of these spices. That means they're very important. To skip something means you don't use it or you pass by it. So they cannot be skipped, meaning that they're very important. Okay? What are the spices that you need? 5-spice powder and white pepper. So 5-spice powder is 五香粉, which is a special spice blend from Taiwan and China. This might be hard to find in America, so they have to write it specially. You can't miss this. 5-spice powder and white pepper. White pepper is a little bit uncommon in America. Here in Taiwan, it's usually black and white pepper together. But in America, usually it's just black pepper. So you might have to look if you're in the US trying to make this. Next, the Sichuan peppercorns are a bonus, adding a little numbing tingle. So this is tricky. Sichuan peppercorns. Sichuan is Sichuan. And then peppercorns is a kind of pepper. Sichuan hujiao. What the heck is that? Well, Sichuan pepper means huajiao. So in America, huajiao, we call it Sichuan peppercorns or Sichuan pepper. And that's very uncommon in America, but they're saying, and because it's hard to find, they say Sichuan peppercorns are a bonus. So if you add it, that's great, but you don't need it. Okay? Does that make sense? It's a bonus, meaning if you have it, it's extra and it's great, but you don't have to have it. And it's a bonus because it's adding a little numbing tingle. Numbing is like ma zui. And then tingle is that little feeling like that you get when you eat huajiao. So this is a little tricky. So numb is you don't have a feeling. Tingle is when it goes on in your mouth. So, okay, I won't spend too much time. Next, if you can't find Sichuan peppercorns, use black peppercorns instead. This is just the long way to say black pepper. So if you can't find Sichuan peppercorns, they're hard to find in America, just use black pepper instead. But black peppercorns, meaning the whole ones, not ground up pepper. So you won't get the same tingly feeling, but the chicken will be just as good. So tingly, the tingly feeling is ma. So ma la. Ma is tingling, and then la is spicy. So the ma flavor is really, really uncommon in America. Most people have never tried anything that's ma. I never had it until I went to China to study. And so this tingly feeling is really rare in America. So they're saying if you get it, it's a bonus, but you don't need it. You'll get good flavor with black peppercorn too. Okay. This fried chicken recipe happens to be gluten-free thanks to the tapioca flour, which imparts the dish's signature crunch. So gluten-free is an important thing in America right now. There are a lot of people who can't eat gluten. Gluten is a kind of sugar that is in wheat and in bread and sometimes in pasta. And it can hurt someone's stomach if they have a problem with gluten. So this fried chicken is gluten-free because what kind of flour does it use? It uses tapioca flour. Usually flour is wheat flour. It comes from the wheat plant. But this flour comes from tapioca. Tapioca is this plant. I forget the name in Chinese. I think it's mosu, but I'm not sure. Tapioca is what is used to make boba, zhenzu. So you use this plant to make boba, and we use this flour to cover the chicken, and this flour imparts the dish's signature crunch. Now, this is a tricky way of writing this. Impart is like gives. It gives the dish its signature crunch. Crunch is when you bite something and it goes crunch. So that's what crunch means. Crunch. And it's the signature crunch, meaning it's the special thing for that food. If you eat Taiwanese fried chicken and it doesn't crunch, it's not very good popcorn chicken, right? You need that. Okay. Monica says, this article is a bit difficult for me. That's okay. I know this part is quite difficult. This is pretty tough. But if it's a little bit tough, there's a lot to learn, right? And so take your time. You don't need to understand everything. Like I said, a lot of this is very difficult, but try to pick up on little things like a staple is a common food. Skewer, this kind of wooden stick. Sichuan peppercorns, that's the word for huajiao. And tingly is ma, that flavor. So you don't need to know everything. The sentences are kind of complicated in here, but just try to pick up on some key words, some important things. So if it's tough, that's okay. You can always come back, rewind. Like after our stream, you can come back, watch this part again, and just try to read through it slowly and take your time. The New York Times is usually very difficult, so don't worry, don't feel bad. If something's difficult, it's an opportunity to learn something, right? Let's see. Duffy says, okay. Duffy's writing about different kinds of pepper, like huajiao, hujiao, lajiao, that they all come from Xibei, Xinjiang. Okay, they come from Xinjiang, I guess, and then they went to different places and got used in different foods, different cooking. Yeah, that's probably right. I'm not really sure, but will you give us a word list after that? Yeah, sure. I can choose some of these words and then make a list. That's a great idea. And so what Duffy was saying is that a lot of these peppers come from Xinjiang, but then the name Sichuan is a little bit different. But yeah, that's okay. This doesn't mean that this pepper comes from Sichuan, not for sure, but it's very common in Sichuan food. If you eat food from Sichuan province, it's going to have lots of huajiao. So in English, we use this word to describe it because when we think of Sichuan food, we think of huajiao. Okay? Whew. Oh my God, all of us are gonna get a headache. This is tricky. So I'm sorry if it's too hard. But yeah, let's go to the next page. Ingredients. It's gonna get easier from here. The introduction is always the hardest part. So ingredients. Yield 4 to 6 servings. We talked about this before. This means how much comes out of this recipe. If you make this recipe, you will get 4 to 6 servings of this fried chicken. That could mean enough for 4 to 6 people, depending on how much you each eat, right? So, and also how big the pieces are. So, let's just go quickly through this. We can review a little bit, but keep on moving. So, 1.5 pounds of boneless, skinless chicken thighs cut into 1-inch pieces. So, boneless and skinless. That's important. In Taiwan, sometimes it's not always boneless, and I might break my teeth. Oh, there's a bone. So, make it with boneless and skinless chicken thighs. I think it's usually skinless, right? There's no skin. And also chicken thighs. That means the leg of the chicken. In America, people usually cook with chicken breast. So you have to remind them, use chicken thighs, not chicken breast, because the thighs have more flavor. So, and then cut into 1-inch pieces. An inch is about 3 centimeters, I think. But we use inches in the US. Next, 2 tablespoons of soy sauce. We talked about tablespoons and teaspoons. The way to remember this is that a tablespoon sits on the table and then you use it to eat your soup, okay? Or scoop your rice or whatever. 2 teaspoons of granulated sugar. How much sugar would you want to put in your tea? Only a little bit, so a teaspoon is much smaller. So 2 teaspoons of granulated sugar. I think it was last week, we talked about something granulated. That just means it's in grains, which a grain is a little piece, a little square of sugar, instead of like big rocks of sugar. Granulated sugar is what you usually get, okay? Duffy says, studying where ingredients are from is so tough. You're right. So don't worry about it. Who cares where it comes from? Like tapioca, that plant that we use for boba in Zhengzhou, that plant I think is called cassava. And I think it comes from Africa. And why? But anyways, yeah, so don't worry about where stuff comes from. Okay, next up, 1.5 teaspoons of Chinese 5-spice powder, which is that 五香粉. So lots of different flavors mixed together. And 1.5 teaspoons. So not very much. You don't need a ton. 1 teaspoon of ground white pepper. It's ground white pepper. Why do they say it's ground? That means it's broken up into little pieces. Instead, the opposite of ground might be whole pepper, or we said peppercorns, right? 1 teaspoon of ground white pepper. It's all ground up. And instead of whole white pepper or peppercorns, like we saw on the other page, okay? And then next, 4 teaspoons of kosher salt. Kosher means that it is safe for a Jewish person to eat. So kosher, well, I won't write it, but kosher is like they do something to the salt to make sure it's clean and they make sure it's very, very safe to eat. So kosher salt is good. But kosher comes from a religion called Judaism for Jewish people. And then 6 cups of vegetable oil. So there are lots of different oils you can cook with. Vegetable oil doesn't have much flavor. We have 6 cups of vegetable oil. We talked about a cup being, where do we put a cup? This thing, this kind of measuring cup up here. And a measuring cup will tell you how much. 1 cup is about 250 milliliters, okay? So 6 cups, that's quite a lot of vegetable oil, but that's because you're going to deep fry the chicken. You want it to have a lot of oil. Okay, now the bonus, 1 tablespoon of Sichuan peppercorns. 1 tablespoon. So the Sichuan peppercorns look like this. Okay? They're peppers, but they're not so dark like black pepper. Or if you don't have that, whole black peppercorns. Like I said over here, the opposite of ground. Then 1 cup and 115 grams, 1 cup or 115 grams of tapioca flour. So this slash is usually or. So if you fill this thing with flour, that's about a cup. If you don't want to measure it that way, you want about 115 grams of flour. And then 1 cup of fresh basil leaves. Basil is 九层塔, but I think in America, the basil is a little bit different. Maybe the flavor is a little bit different. 九层塔, I think we call Thai basil. And then American or Western basil, the flavor is almost the same, but a little bit different. Well, you should probably use the same as Taiwan, which is 九层塔, which I guess would be Thai basil. Okay, keep on going. So the preparation for this fried chicken, let's get into it. Step 1, in a large bowl, season chicken thighs with soy sauce, sugar, 5-spice powder, white pepper, and 2 teaspoons salt. Now, we're not going to talk about everything. Hopefully you remember these ingredients. But here the word season. This is a verb. We talked about this a couple weeks ago, I think. This is a verb meaning put seasoning on something. So to season something means shake the spices on top. Like a 调味 is season. Okay? So in a large bowl, season chicken thighs with soy sauce, sugar, 5-spice powder, white pepper, and 2 teaspoons salt. Now, usually we would say I'm talking too much. I'm losing my voice. Usually we would say 2 teaspoons of salt, but sometimes on a recipe, we will drop little words like this. So when you're speaking, we need the word of, 2 teaspoons of salt. but on a recipe to save time, they drop these little words because you can figure out what they're talking about. Next, set aside to marinate about 1 hour at room temperature, or refrigerate it overnight. So it ends up looking like this, a big bowl of sauce and spices and sugar and stuff. And then you set it aside. So to set something means to put it somewhere. Set it aside, meaning put it to the side. Like you're not going to do anything with it, just put it over there to marinate for about 1 hour. Just like the word of, we should have the word for here, but in an article, it's okay to drop that word. So marinate for about 1 hour. But we don't need that word for when writing. So set aside, put it over there, to marinate, meaning just sit there and absorb the sauce for about 1 hour at room temperature. So you don't need to put it in the fridge. Or you can refrigerate it overnight. Refrigerate is a verb, meaning put it in the refrigerator. Okay? So refrigerate it overnight. And that's fine. So both are okay. 1 hour on the table, overnight in the fridge. Step 2. When ready to cook, fit a medium pot with a cooking thermometer and heat vegetable oil over medium to 350 degrees. So you let it marinate for a while, and then when you're ready to cook, fit a medium pot with a cooking thermometer. A thermometer, thermo means heat or temperature. Like you might have thermal clothes. But a thermometer is this thing here that is used, oh geez, my arrows. This thing here is used to measure the temperature, how hot something is. So this is a cooking thermometer. You could use a thermometer when you're feeling sick, right? Not this kind. Don't poke yourself. That would hurt. So fit a medium pot with a cooking thermometer and heat, this is a verb, meaning make it hot. Heat vegetable oil over the medium temperature on your stove to 350 degrees. So you set the stove to medium and then wait until the thermometer says 350. Remember, that's F, Fahrenheit, 350 F, which in C is probably like 150 or 160. I don't know. I'm not good at C, Celsius. Coarsely grind the peppercorns in a spice grinder. This thing here, this black thing, is a spice grinder. It will grind your pepper. And you want to coarsely grind it. But you want the pieces to be big. If it's coarsely ground, that means the pieces are big. Coarse versus fine, meaning really small. So coarsely means really big pieces. So coarsely grind the peppercorns in a spice grinder or mortar and pestle. So mortar and pestle is this thing over here, which is people used to use for medicine a long time ago. And so you could put your spices in there, your peppers, I mean. After you ground it up, mix with the remaining 2 teaspoons of kosher salt. So you want to heat your oil, that's one step, and then grind your peppercorns and mix it with salt and then put it on the side. Okay, now we're finally ready to get the chicken ready. Wet your hands, so get your hands wet, and toss marinated chicken with tapioca flour and about 1 tablespoon water until the tapioca flour looks like small beads and clings to the chicken. So you want to toss the marinated chicken, so flip it around with tapioca flour, with the flour, and a little bit of water. So flour, chicken, and water until the flour looks like small beads. So mix it around until the flour looks like little beads, like little balls of flour. And clings to the chicken. So the flour clings, which means, sticks to the chicken. So clings to the chicken, it sticks to the chicken. And then adding a little moisture to your chicken, meaning a little water, helps the tapioca flour form small beads that will also stick to the chicken and give it a very crunchy crust. So if you get these little beads of flour, these balls of flour, then we can get the crispy parts on the fried chicken. Okay? This is tough. Sorry if it's a lot, but we're almost there. Step 4. Working in batches, meaning groups. We talked about batches with the chicken. So you don't want to do all of the chicken at the same time. You want to do it in maybe 4 little groups of fried chicken. So working in batches or little groups, add the battered chicken. Battered means covered with flour and stuff. It's like sticky on the outside. Add the battered chicken to the hot oil and fry until golden brown and crisp. 5 to 7 minutes. So this part's not too hard, I think. The only thing is the chicken is battered, meaning it's covered in batter, meaning the flour and water and sauce mix. So cook it until it's golden brown and crisp, which is 5 to 7 minutes. With a slotted spoon or spider, what the heck? I'm not sure what a spider is, so don't worry about that. But this must be a kitchen tool. We don't want a real spider to grab your chicken. But with a slotted spoon or spider, I'm not sure what a spider is, but a slotted spoon, slots means there are holes in the spoon. The spoon has lots of little holes in it, okay? So with a slotted spoon, transfer fried chicken to a paper towel lined plate. We talked about that before. If we have a plate, we want a paper towel on the bottom of it, so it's lined. The line means a layer of something. So paper towel lined plate. That means you have paper towels on the plate because that will absorb the oil. And season each batch with peppercorn mixture. So this step is your just frying the chicken. The chicken's all ready. You just have to fry it for a few minutes, take it out, and then shake the peppercorn mixture on top, the flavoring. And then last step, step 5. Fry basil leaves until translucent and crisp. So after you finish cooking the chicken, you want to fry your basil leaves. So throw them in the oil and fry them until they're translucent and crisp. Translucent means light can go through them. You can hold it up to the light and you can see through a little bit. It's still green, but light comes through. So fry them until they're translucent and crisp. 1 to 2 minutes. And then scatter over the fried chicken. Scatter means like 分散. Just like go, put it here, put it there, left, right, up, down, whatever. So scatter over fried chicken. Serve with leftover peppercorn mixture for sprinkling to taste. Sprinkle means like drop a little bit on. So you serve them this fried chicken, but put the peppercorn mixture, like the spices, on the side. They can sprinkle some extra on top if they want it a little more spicy. Whew. And that's that. That's our Taiwanese popcorn chicken recipe. So that's a lot, right? So we took our time. This is the thing. You don't have to go this slowly when you're reading through a recipe. This was quite difficult, and I understand that. And so that's okay. Take your time. Just try your best. We are going extra slow because this is English class. If it wasn't English class and you were trying to read this, you can skip a lot of these words or just be like, I think I know what they're talking about. You don't need to look at every word so closely, right? So we started by learning about this fried chicken and why it's popular. And then we looked at the ingredients, the things you need to make it, and then the steps. So to marinate the chicken, let it sit in the sauce, get the oil ready, and get the pepper ready to put on it after it's cooked. And then to batter the chicken, meaning cover it with flour and stuff. And then step 4 was frying the chicken in a pot of oil. And then step 5 was to have the chicken and put basil and spices on top. And so this took a long time. There's a lot of things to learn, but it's actually not a very difficult recipe, right? There are only 5 steps and each one is not super complicated. You just need to get the right ingredients and take your time. Just like English, learning English. You just need to get the right ingredients, get some words, get some sentences, and take your time. Now, so I hope you enjoyed this. This is pretty complicated, but I think it's worthwhile. It's good to go through these things slowly, take our time, and try to learn every little bit and piece. When you're doing this on your own, trying to read through stuff like this, you don't need to go so detailed, of course, but I figure we're here, we might as well try our best and look at everything in our details. Monica searched Google Images for a slotted spider, and it's looks like a something. I don't know how to say that. So let me pull up a picture. Oh, that's what it is. Let me share this in 5 seconds. Be patient, be patient. Slotted spider. Thank you. I forgot to look this one up. It's loading. It's loading. That is a slotted spider. So we don't really have these in America, or not very often. I don't think I ever had one of these in my parents' house growing up. We had slotted spoons. I don't want to show you everything. Give me a second. Slotted spoon, just to make sure we're clear what a slotted spoon looks like. Yeah, like this one. Give me 5 seconds. If you gotta go to bed, that's okay. We can, we're almost done here. So give me 5 seconds. We had a slotted spoon and a spider. So there's a slotted spoon. It's a spoon with slots. A slot is like a long hole. And then a spider is this kind of like, almost like a net, a metal net. But these are not super popular. They're not super common in the US. I never saw one when I was growing up, or I don't remember ever seeing one. So that's why I was surprised when we saw spider. It's kind of a scary name, right? But yeah, I hope you had a good time learning this today. Yupei says, it looks like a spider net, so is it called a spider? Yeah, maybe. I'm not really sure. That's a good point. It looks like a spider web. That's what you mean. Yeah, that's probably what it is. It looks like a spider web, so maybe it's called a spider. But yeah, hopefully you had a good time. There's a lot to learn. And so I'll make a list of some of the key words in here. There's probably about like 10 or maybe 15 new words that we haven't talked about before. And so I'll make a little list. I'll put it on this video. I think we can stop here for today. Thank you everyone for joining. I hope you had a good time. So thank you everybody. Have a great night. Have a wonderful Friday and have a great weekend. Thank you everyone. Bye-bye.